control the vertical.
Welcome to Anthologic, the TV anthology podcast. I am your host, Mark. Anthologic is a podcast dedicated to exploring the good, the bad, and the odd of horror, science fiction, and the best of mystery suspense anthology shows and series on TV. Join me as we slip through the cracks of reality to approach the extremes of experience, where we can peruse the stories and art of a sinister fairground of strange and wonderful rides. And now we go on to the show that is the focus of this particular episode. Welcome to this episode of Anthologic Phase 1. Today I'm talking about a show that I kind of came across. I can't remember exactly how I came across this one. And it just about fits into the wheelhouse I've set myself. But I thought it was worth talking about. This is a show called 4-Star Playhouse. When it was syndicated, it became Star Performance, and it's an anthology series. Now, some of the anthology episodes, some of the stories are border on sort of mystery and horror, or psychological thriller, and somewhat surreal apparently, but also, you know, it goes to the straight drama, comedy, and so on. And it's called 4-Star Playhouse because the original premise is that 4 famous stars of the time would alternate in each episode, so you'd always get one of them in one of the episodes. And those 4 stars originally were Charles Boyer, Dick Powell, Rosalind Russell, and Joel McCrea. However, a few dropped out. McCrea and Rosalind Russell dropped out, and that got updated to David Niven and Ida Lupino. So Charles Boyer, Dick Powell, David Niven, Ida Lupino. And there was also some other sort of fairly famous people that would appear in quite a lot of episodes as well. For example, Ronald Coleman, Joan Fontaine, Merle Oberon. There's a few. And apparently there was an occasional recurring character who, one of them, a character called a gambling house operator called Willie Dante, spun off into his own series. So how about that? Now, this was originally sponsored by Singer, the sewing machine place, so it was called the Singer 4-Star Playhouse. But later on, another sponsor stepped in, a pharmaceutical sponsor, Bristol Myers, and they kind of alternated, and whoever was sponsoring, that would be the 4-Star Playhouse heading. So it was on twice weekly initially, and while it was not a raging hit, it did enough to get 4 seasons in all. Quite a good score, I'd say. 129 episodes in all, which is something, right? It first aired on September the 25th, 1952, and the very last episode aired on September the 27th, only 2 days later, 1958. So it lasted... 56, sorry. So it lasted 4 years. It ran for 4 years during the 50s. Now, I also think there may have been, for some of these, sometimes there's like a radio show precedence. I'm not seeing that here, though. A few people premiered as directors in this show. Blake Edwards is probably the most significant one. Blake Edwards was the director, most famous for the Pink Panther movies, sort of premiered on this show. And it may be that's how, you know, he met David Niven. David Niven was the star of the very first Pink Panther. And of course, Peter Sellers kind of stole the show as Inspector Clouseau, and the whole thing became a Inspector Clouseau vehicle from that point on. But yeah, it was much more a kind of mixed bag of stars, the Pink Panther, when it first did. This is alright. A lot of episodes, not all, but a lot of episodes are on YouTube. And in fact, the very first episode, which is the one I'm going to talk about now, is on YouTube, so you can see it for yourself. And that one has Charles Boyer, who you don't see much in movies. I don't see much in movies. He's in a fair number, I guess. But it was kind of interesting to see him in this. and he starred in a one called My Wife Geraldine. My Wife Geraldine's an interesting one because basically people realise his wife appears to be have gone missing, but it's a sit down. At one point, he says to the landlady, as it were, when did you last see Geraldine? She said, "Oh, weeks ago. I can't really remember." And it turns out he sits down and tells her story. Geraldine never existed. Never existed. He just created this facade of having a wife, renting a house for a family, but whenever people came around, he would sort of pretend his wife was out or in the shower or something like that. But he created a fairly elaborate sort of setup. He would buy perfumes, buy gifts for her every day, have magazine subscriptions so her name was on the mail. So everyone thought... And the reason he did this is he went for a job interview where the man was like saying, "Oh, are you a family man, you know," and clearly made it clear that his feeling was he doesn't trust anyone who isn't married. And at that point, Jos Boye kind of made up that he was married and his wife had a wife. So he got the job. And he had to think of a name on the spur of the moment. And one of the bottles of perfume he'd bought was called Geraldine. So he used the word Geraldine. And he even faked going in to get her to sign the sort of lease for the house. Obviously signed it himself. And it ran out from there. Jos Boye, I don't know, man. I'm not sure what he's famous. I guess the most famous thing the thing he's most famous for is the film Gaslight. Now, not that many people have seen that, but they know the term gaslighting. So it's kind of retained in the zeitgeist just on that one word. You know, the use of that word gaslighting comes from the film Gaslight, where he was the gaslighter of his wife, Ingrid Bergman, kind of slowly driving her mad. So he was a bad guy in that one. But in this, he's more, you know, friendly, not particularly a bad guy. He's just trying to get through life. And things come to a head when his employer says, my wife insists you come to dinner. He keeps hearing about you guys and she wants to see someone who's got the perfect marriage. He said, she's got the flu. And then he gets into an accident and there's a phone call to his house trying to let his wife know because he puts her down as the, you know, if there's an accident, next to kin. And he's concussed, so he's got, you know, he's a bit out of it. And then when people go look in the house, she's not there. And it's also a bit suspicious. So people say, has he murdered his wife? I bet he's murdered his wife. And all this. Anyway, it escalates and escalates and escalates. He turns up, doesn't know what to do. The house, once he's told the landlady the story, she actually pretends to be his wife to throw the cops off or you know, whoever's come round to get him off the hook. So that's kind of how it ends. There is a slight twist at the end, which I'll leave to you, which is kind of an interesting one, especially if you know he's got a background with Gaslight as well. That kind of adds to it. But he's pretty good at this, and I quite enjoyed it as a sort of bit of goofy drama. Drama bordering on sort of, light drama, let's put it that way, but it's with some comedy elements. Yeah, and it's pretty good, and I quite enjoyed it. So yeah, it was okay. Let's put it that way. Considering also it's from the early 50s, it's better than I was expecting, I have to say. Because sometimes it's all a bit stagey. But no, they had some decent production values in this. It looked alright. There was the outside location shooting, things like that. So it's kind of interesting. And I enjoyed it. So I will leave it there. So yes, 4-star theatre, a lot of which are on YouTube. So you can catch this. And I believe it Apple TV Plus has it on some areas. Not in... though it was advertised when I Googled it, I couldn't find it on Apple Plus. And I have Apple TV. I couldn't find it on the UK version. So I watched the YouTube one. And it was fine, you know. Okay, I will leave it there. But before I go, may I ask, is anybody out there? I'm not.
We now return control of your television set to you until next week at this same time, when the control voice will take you to